All right, everybody, welcome. Welcome to Jay's Corner. It is October 28th, and boy, it is challenging. We've got year end. We're going to go quick. It's going to take an hour, maybe. I'm going to go as fast as I possibly can. Lots of things going on in the real world to everyday people. Be sure to sign up to the newsletter, and let's see if I can get myself in gear here. Oh my goodness. Let's just see here. So what we've got is we've got year-end planning to deal with, and we're going to get into all of that. Be sure to check out. Here we go. Be sure to check out the Substack. I've left the link there in the chat. I've left the link in the text below the video. Jay's Corner. Let's just get straight into the muck, if you will. So I'm going to change the order compared to the thumbnail, which is that, look, we have got the enrollment periods now. The enrollment periods are up now, and let's just see. My goodness, this is a slight disaster here. We'll get there. We will absolutely get there. So what we have here is we've got the enrollment periods now. Medicare, go to maximizeyourmedicare.com. That's the official website for the book. You can see that the book website is now new. Pre-order available now. I would expect a couple of months from this point. If you want guidance, just click this link and this simple form. We're almost at full capacity. Not quite. That's my problem. I'll deal with it. We will deal with it. And I just wanted to say one thing, which is that every application is signed by me. I realize that there's risk involved to me. First of all, there's lots of risk involved to me. But that all said, I will accept it. That is just the commercial risk that I run. And, before we do any of that stuff, you can see that there's a disclaimer here as well as under the text below the video. This is a new federal rule where I've got to actually say this out loud on recorded phone calls now if I speak to you. And I get the privilege of trying to keep it for 10 years. Okay. Before we get too much further into it, let's just go over here. Let's go back to maximizeyourmedicare.com. I'm going to show you this, which is why I'm having this video today, which is over here under Medicare info. You can see resources, and what we have done is we have updated the 2024 premiums and information. So you can see that the premiums are higher here. Base case premium is up to 174.70. These other line items here cannot be overlooked, right? Because what it is showing to you is that your premium is a tax-adjusted number. This is not only 174.70 for people. No, there are millions of people out of 65 million Medicare beneficiaries that are paying higher premiums here. This has to do with your income taxes. And now you can understand why Jay's Corner exists. The issue is that if you get, and you can see down at the bottom here, I have the same disclaimer sits down here at the bottom of the page, right? And the issue here is that if you are getting expertise about Medicare alone, that also is not the full picture. You can see I've bent over backwards here to explain the cornerstone of retirement planning, right? I've written this book. This is the 10th year we're going to have this book, okay? Because I've known this, and the fact is that there are so many moving parts. A, it's so important. B, actually, I should have reversed those two, right? But in addition to that, there's fiscal demographic reality. 2024, 12,000 people a day will turn 65. It is the most in American history. There are controversies here around Medicare. Of course, there are going to be. And I'm just going to show you this real quick because it is It is important. Uh, if we take a look at this, we're going to get to this in just a moment. And no, that is, let's just see here. Yep. Which is you're going to see things like this, this is Motley Crue. Motley Crue is a rock band. This is Motley Fool. Anyway, what you have here is little known downsides of Medicare Advantage plans. Number one, this list is not little known at all. At all, right? What? Something like 200 videos on this channel, on Maximize Your Medicare, the YouTube channel. Something like that over the years, right? This is the underpinning, this is the construct of Medicare Advantage. These are the inherent characteristics. We can have different co-pays. We can have different memberships and discounts on this, that, and the other. Those are details. Book is there so that you understand the principles, the ideas, the building blocks, so that when the details change, you're not distracted by noise. Jay's Corner is about trying to get you back to the signal to try to keep the noise out. And there's so much noise, it's overwhelming. And that I can understand. I'm empathetic to that. These are known, right? Lower premiums, extra coverage, capped out-of-pocket spending. So this is for me what should have been the first, right? Every Medicare Advantage plan must have an out-of-pocket maximum limit. Must. You don't get approved by the federal government without this aspect, without this characteristic. These are also known. Limited network in certain locations. So here, what you have here is that get care out network. You may have to see specialists in other regions, and and your network may change over time. True. These are true. This is inherently true. Again, depending on where you live, the quality of your networks can be great. They can also be so fragmented as to be unusable. And I would not necessarily say, well, I live in a big city and therefore I'm going to be my networks are great. That is not the way that I would put it. Because those moving parts can move. And in big cities dominated by particular hospital systems, you'll have a headline saying this carrier is in a dispute with this hospital system. We see this every single year. This is inherent, meaning that this is built into the way all of these complicated connection points occurs. That's inherent. That doesn't exist in Medigap. That said, there's no question. Lower premiums. And I don't want to tell people that, okay, never Medicare Advantage. You don't hear on Maximize Your Medicare, you don't hear on Jay's Corner, never this, never that. No. I'm here to try to inform you so that you can choose correctly to the situation that fits you. Now, I'm terrible at sales. I don't belong in this kind of YouTube world, right? The fact is I can give you tons of information. Actual execution is another thing. It has multiple layers to it. You don't just roll up to Medicare supplement carrier and just say, okay, well, I'm just going to go and apply to any old guy. I just looked up online and found this price, and therefore that I presume that was efficient or that was the most beneficial for you. You don't get full price transparency online when it comes to Medicare supplement. You do not. There are discounts in there from every carrier. There are different pricing nuances there. There can be reasons that you choose carrier 1 and not carrier 2. Carrier 1 may have affiliations with access to lower dental insurance. It could have silver sneakers even with Medigap. Meaning that just simply choosing Medigap out of the blue just because they are standardized contracts isn't also the complete solution. This year, Medicare Advantage, one of those things, the reason I've had this like long tangent here is because Medicare Advantage plans get money from the federal government. That has been based on their normal per diem plus adjustments for your health. So in other words, if you're Mr. Sick-a-Lot, the federal government will pay the Medicare Advantage carrier more to provide you the Medicare Advantage plan in your instance. So, and then that's one, and that's something called risk adjustment. I've already commented about risk adjustment on Maximize Your Medicare and Jay's Corner, both channels. There's a second element, which is the STAR system. And what you have here is that this year, the STAR system, the grading curve has changed. And now you can see it here. So to the people who don't know about the high-end business world, these groups in the left-hand corner here, this is the smart persons in the pool. I mean, this, for example, when I went to graduate school, these are the locations that the smart guys want to join, right? These large consulting firms, they have resources, they have studies kind of almost close to academics as well as practical reality. And you see it here, the common message, multiple. And now you see, okay, professional firms trying to help carriers try to get better star ratings. Why? So they can get a bigger per diem. The problem is the grading scale is more difficult now. Now, I find that welcome and obvious, to be candid with you, because the carriers are smart, highly resourced. They understand the rules. They will adjust their premiums to get higher star ratings. So would you, by the way. The issue here is that when the grading scale gets harder, you see few that decline, and that has actually happened, which is there are far fewer plans with 5 stars. And you can see this makes total sense then, which is since the money will be lower to the carriers, they're going to have choices. And one of those choices, because they have a lower per diem, a smaller allowance, right? I'm 13. I got an allowance from my parents. I got bad grades. I get a lower allowance. What do I get? I don't get to buy as much gum. Well, it's the same thing here. And here is the issue, is that when you have the star rating pressure, if you have thought that your business was going to get X allowance when I was 13, right? I thought I was going to get $5 a week. And now all of a sudden I got $4 a week. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Right? I can't afford that. I need to get better grades, right? And to get $6 the next week. In which case, now you can see in the same way. And you can see the same thing I highly suspect is coming to Part D. Now, because of the Inflation Reduction Act. And again, another of the high-end healthcare consulting firms that provide observations to the health insurance carriers. There it is. And all I'm saying is here, your takeaway is that you've got this window. Here's the video to reach out to us. This book here on pre-order, so that you can understand all of the moving parts or introduce to you how they could affect your individual situation. So important. I can't say this enough. I start out of all of the topics that I've started with. You still are here with Medicare where 2 things. Number 1 is this is the bedrock of retirement planning. Why? Because I'm trying to help you limit unexpected financial downside. I didn't say I can protect against some alien taking your roof to that degree. No. But can I help you? Does the book help guide to protect the financial downside that risk your household savings, retirement planning savings, social security check? It doesn't matter what your net worth is. The grace, the beauty, the elegance of Medicare, if you could call it that way, is the fact that it is equally offered everyone eligible as long as you've paid for 10 years of income tax. And then the second aspect is, as you can hear from you just take a look at Jay's Corner, how many different topics I'm talking about here that look different. Out of them all, the buyer has undisputed huge amounts of options in your favor. The carriers have no say. Those are federal rules. The carriers will follow them, period. There's no debate here. The carriers will follow these regulations to the letter. It's a question of whether or not you, the public, the reader, the newcomer, the adult child helping their senior parent, understand the rules. For that, I'm biased. I've got a particular book in mind to get that information. No rest for the weary. We moved directly into the individual health insurance enrollment window. Open enrollment begins November 1 next week. I'm going to go through a quick example here. There'll be videos later. So let's just take Chicago. You can see the link is in the video, in the text below the video. So now, this is age independent. We're going to talk to the ripple effects for other people, but let's just use a middle-aged person, or not even a middle-aged person. Let's take a young person, 40 years old, married. Let's call this person 41. And you can see that what will happen is, this is the key, is that this part needs to be correct. Let's not say there's no, we're not going anywhere. So now let's just call yourself at $60,000. What you have here is, yes, the estimates for 2024 are up on that link now. They work. Okay. So, and you can see this difference. Let's just skip these. These are important details, by the way, right? When we help people, which is free, we go through this with them to make sure that, because it does you no good to have insurance if you cannot see the specialist that you want. But you can see, you thought that Medicare was complicated. 117 plans in Chicagoland. I used Hyde Park there. I think it's Hyde Park. Anyway, so you can see the vast difference here. And you can see a couple of other things. And I'm going to just point this out real quick. If this person had 50,000, you can see it 503, and now 635. So now you can understand why I've bent over backwards here in so many different ways, right? Which is, these topics look, feel, communicated as if they are separate topics, right? This is one about a phone. This is one about coffee. Yeah, but let's just say, for example, these start to clash and they start to interact. And you can see it there. You can see it there clear as day, which is when you've changed the income by $10,000, you've also given yourself this extra break here in eligibility and health insurance, and now your lowest priced plan, $1.72 a month. Those aren't misprints. Those aren't misprints. That said, you do need to get this right. Right? In other words, the definition of what's in here, it does need to be correct. It cannot just be you just like randomly entering numbers. That will not work, because when you file for income tax purposes, you will need to pay it. It gets reconciled. And if you have received too big a discount, you'll need to pay the difference back in tax form. Don't get me wrong, I also don't want it to be the other way around, which is that I don't want you to have the idea of not claiming when you should. Thank you so much to Bryce Baxter for saying hello in the chat. Thank you, thank you so much. You know, I'll just say this. Part of the reason that I go at this speed about this different set of topics is that I understand we have a skeptical society. I get all that, and a lot of that is earned. I'm not disputing any of that, none of it. But I also believe in common sense, which is that so there's, again, like today, like I woke up at 8:00 or no, 7:30 in a cold sweat. I'm like, oh no, I don't have any of the tabs set up, right? And a fast agenda, heavy agenda, where I'm talking about a number of different topics. And the issue is you have got to consider whether or not, shout out to David, thank you for joining again, that you need to just, everyone, I believe in common sense. And part of that common sense is to evaluate the speaker. Is there any way that I've switched topics without a script at this speed? With this, right? And I'm just going to say one last thing, and we're going to get to other topics as well, which is, and we're going to move on in just a moment, which is that if you think that I'm revealing everything here, I'm not even close. I'm sorry to say that it's more complicated, right? We live in a complicated world. The calculators in the back are directly related to prior walks of life for me, right? Creating complicated derivative structures, the process, who the parties are, all the moving parts, all the Legos that need to be assembled in a particular location, the calculations involved. That entire process is staffed by people that look, well, hopefully they're prettier than me, but they have my background, right? And then what are we doing? We're calling up lawyers at $10,000 an hour, right? And so in other words, and then all the other stakeholders are another set of cloned people like me from different walks of life. In other words, I don't believe that we should spend tons of time throwing rocks at the suppliers, whether that be health insurance company, insurance company, Morgan Stanley or stock brokerages. I'm going to show you what the shortcomings or how they don't apply to you or what isn't being said to you. That doesn't make them dumb in the background. No. That is a different thing. So I'm trying to distill this, but I also don't want to leave you with the idea that, oh, well, I heard Jay explain this. I'm just going to go and, apply this and do it all myself. I didn't say that. You also won't hear me say that here on the channel. You don't have to come to me. We're busy. But the fact is that I don't think you should do any of this stuff yourself. Not a single element is the reality. Because even if you had the right information, the right ideas about every topic that I discuss here, that the step to execution is separate and subtle and complicated, and also, candidly speaking, way beyond my comfort level of speaking in public. In other words, I'm happy to share the information just to give you insight on the right ideas here in public. That is different than getting you to the actual endpoint, right? I mean, yeah, I want to have, a car that goes 150 miles an hour, but actually getting the best price and the best service and the best contract and the best financing. Oh, well, I'm just going to roll up and click. Can't do that. And I think that everyday people know this. I do believe that. Okay. Off the soapbox. Let's just see where we're going here. Good morning, everybody. Howdy to Texas. Cowboys on against the Rams. Matt Stafford returning home. That makes me nervous. Matthew Stafford returning home. That makes me nervous. He always has these games where he's like goes like nuts, and if he goes nuts, then we got a problem. We could have a problem. All right, let's just go back over here. We're not going to Medicare. We're going to change tabs over here because I've got to show you some other. No, that's wrong, isn't it? Last month I said that it is a very complicated financial planning backdrop. Very complicated. I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to absolutely stick with that. In fact, the war has made it more complicated, not less. I don't think that, call me Captain Obvious. That is certainly intact. So what we have here is, and we're going to, not this. Let's talk about tax loss harvesting here. So, financial markets difficult. You know where your statements are. You don't know exactly where your mutual fund statements are as far as your tax. And I'm really talking about non-qualified funds, not qualified. Qualified funds, your 401k, your IRA, for example, right? They don't have the mutual fund complication. Go to other videos. I've spoken about this on Jay's Corner. Tax loss harvesting. Okay, so we'll see what that is here. If we take a look at, and you can go here. I'm not going to review the technical details of what this stuff is, right? But you can see that it's everywhere on the internet. Information exists on limits to tax loss harvesting. And the reason to do that is to reduce your taxable income. Oh yeah, not coincidentally related to your health insurance premium. No. And also related to your Medicare premium. So much so, in fact, right? So much so that if you see over here on, for example, on gh2benefits.com, right, which is my firm, right? You see in one of the recent posts here that I've actually written about this here. That this is my research note. Do I have it showing up? Yep. This is my research note to the think tank, which is Alliance for Lifetime Income, protectedincome.org, everyone, protectedincome.org, about the intersection between the tax matter and health insurance premium. And your takeaway here is that this is way bigger. First of all, I've spoken with people from this group, right? And I said, maybe it's 10% of the brokerage community, the wealth management community that actually understands the full financial impact of how big this actually is. And people laughed at me. They were like 10%. They took the wild under. They were overwhelmingly on the under. Right? Meaning, and you can understand now why I went on this, why I was on the soapbox a few moments ago. Right? Which is that this is your place where these are clashing. Right here. The intersection's there. The number is so big that literally people's entire retirement trajectory can be different. So it may sound like I'm David Downer. That's actually not the case. In fact, what it is doing is helping in other aspects in ways that that industry is not built. Inherently not built to deal with the combination. Now, do I suspect that the very thin majority they understand the topic, they've heard of the topic. Can they execute the topic? Does that change the way that they do their business? That that is not yet the case. Not yet, until the consumers demand it. Okay. I kind of also, so let me just see if I can get to, like I said, I woke up in a panic today. I woke up in a panic today because I wasn't yet fully prepared. I was not yet fully prepared because, well, like I said, I've spoken very rapidly today. We're not going to slow down here. We've got to, I'm looking at the clock because this is our world where attention spans are limited. So let's just see if we can get over to the, okay, let's see. No. There we go. Okay. Let's go to financial markets observations. Today's not financial advice. Nothing here, financial advice. Okay. So this is a street.com, Jim Cramer's website. So I intentionally used it because of the fact that it's not against these people individually, right? In fact, my comments are sitting on the street.com in many ways under the retirement section up here under personal finance. There will be, Retirement Daily. I am, the very, very frequent guest on this channel, on this website generally. But this article came out 20 hours ago. 20 hours ago. This is not, for me, newsworthy at all. I'm beating a dead horse, beating the same old drum. There's a reason I've called this stocks for show, bonds for dough. Stocks get all the glamour and glory. Everyone's watching Microsoft earnings, Google earnings, Amazon earnings. I get all that. It's understandable. Everyone uses Amazon.com. It's also, that's all fine, but the denominator here is, if I could summarize with one single number, that number has always been the 10-year Treasury yield. Always. If you had to summarize it with a single number, I remember decades ago, I told a family friend, I said, look, you want to understand financial everything? And he knew that I've been around the globe. He knew on financial markets. I said, you want a single number to understanding? That's your number. There's no second place. It's not Apple earnings coming up. It's not. It's this number. And this is for newcomers. To subscribers to Jay's Corner, this is not new news, right? I've been on this. I, mock, tongue in cheek to try to keep it light. People who are making living, entire industries are there to talk about the numerator, which is fine if and only if the denominator is behaving. We've had 40 years with basically 2-year exception, where R has been directly down in a non-volatile way. Directly down. And, oh yeah, by the way, coordinated around the world by central banks. Housing crisis fixed. How? Put a safeguard around the banking system, jam the R down. The end. And off we went. Now I can look at earnings, and now every risky asset went higher. The end. This isn't now. We are not going back there easily. We're not. Because what is not being said to people is that, there's speculation that the Federal Reserve will have to then throw in the towel for one set of reasons or another that R goes down. But now we are not coordinated around the world either. And this is why I've been trying to tell you about these different aspects in different locations. Right? Which is that, for example, you'll see the degree, first of all, before we do that, you can see, and I know it's a little bit too light, but you can see down here. Down here is 2020, 0.03%. Now 4.85%. Just work it out one day. Just have 2 periods and change this to 0.03 to point. So this would have been 0.003 is the R. And now it's 1.05. NPV, what was 100, is now 95. Same thing. Same cup, right? The cup has not changed. Its nature hasn't changed. That presumes that I knew how much revenue this cup made. So you can see my point, right? Which is that, or let's say I rented this out, right? And I rented this out for $1 a day. Well, that presumed I get $1 a day. And so now you can see what has happened. And it now becomes fairly self-evident, really. This looks small. It's not small at all. It is being observed, planned for. Pension funds around the planet have to deal with this changing dynamic, this denominator changing to this degree. Can't reiterate that enough. Let's just take a look at what has happened to individual people. And now you can see what has happened here. I said to the paid subscribers, end of July, I said, we're going to party. Are we going to party like it's 2022? And now you see it here. We've basically given away all of the returns from the entire year. And while this press may tell you that, oh, well, stocks are still, this is the S&P 500, 7.4% for the year. Okay, it used to be 19.7%. We've given away 10% on stocks. And at that same time, you've also given away in the bond market. In other words, I can't, they won't allow me to draw a square, I don't think, here. Yeah, they won't. Which is a bummer. Because if I could have, basically the way that I've described this to people, right? The way I've described this to people is this, the reason that you would have understood it in this way is because of what? This had been stable here. If I drew a box, it would have been right around here, right? And then all of a sudden, bam. And from here down to here, you think it's small. It's not small. Stuff is squared, cubed. You don't need to have followed stock, Amazon earnings. You don't. Right? It gives you the backdrop and how difficult it is. And then it bears itself out. And let's just take a look. So if you work for a big company, you have this option. It can be Vanguard. It can be a different company. And you can see here, this is the smartest in the world, basically, right? In other words, no one's going to question Vanguard. No one's going to question BlackRock. No one's going to question JP Morgan Investment Management, right? That run these targeted date funds. I've described how they are created. I've described what holds them together. There's a reason I've used this. I've called it the glue, right? I've described the glue. Now you can understand why I use this wording here. Market unglued. That at the end of July, very simply, I didn't predict a thing. I did observe the glue. Do I think that you can just roll up and just observe it yourself? No, I don't. Right. Like I said, I've been around the planet in these biggest markets. But to describe it to everyday people is just like, look, the glue is not holding the pieces together. What does this mean? This means we've got just fundamental issues of which it, from that point, given the fact that we've got a glue that doesn't work, right, we've got to entertain the idea that this now is wider. Very simple, right? I'm not splitting atoms here again. I don't want to split. I want to make sure that everyday people can understand the idea, which is if glue is holding together a bunch of different parts and that glue stops working, now you've got a bunch of cats in the, in a house running amok. And basically what I would tell you is this blue curve on the right-hand side is now lower and wider. The number of different outcomes is wider. Well, what does that mean for the big investors? That means that, a couple of things. They're like, wait a minute. The fast traders, right? Hedge fund, program trading, high frequency. Do they see this in real time? 100%. Absolutely. There are strategies that are built to deal with this intraday, right? And they are watching this glue carefully. And they're adjusting their allocations among stocks and bonds real time. Don't do this at home. Right? We cannot do it. And there's no guarantee that they're right on a given day, by the way, right? Because of this. The reason I share this with you, with everyday people, is because the fact is that now, as a result, I will deviate from what other people do say online. And I'm going to even deviate with people who are undisputed professionals. So over here on YouTube, on Jay's Corner, we'll just switch over here from this. I spoke with Ann Lester, right? And Ann was a guest here. You should check out this, and she is undisputedly, qualified. She used to run, right? Which is a different thing, right? She used to run JP Morgan Retirement Services, okay? So we're not disputing that at all. Here's the video here. But what she did say a couple of times, and be sure to go and watch this video. It is very, very interesting because of the guest, right? Which is that, of course I've blocked it off. So this is me with Ann here, and she made the point a couple of times during this video that markets always go back up. I don't necessarily agree with that. We have a different view here because of this, right? She can observe it. I agree with that. But the distinction here is that the portfolio managers for targeted date funds are looking at large pools of people over long periods of time, right? They're managing for conglomerate X and the population pool, employee pool in that population. That's their client is company X. That's Ann's client in this instance. And because of that, because that's their perspective, and she's not alone. And this is, like I said, this is not the underqualified. This is the uber qualified. This is what the playing field looks like. This is what a conversation about the playing field looks like. Not the 5-minute on, Whirlpool earnings. This is the qualified. You can see how difficult it is. 3.47 year to date by the smart people in the planet. But they have a different agenda. They have a different business objective. This is the distinction I'm trying to make here for you. Because for everyday people, You're not the population. You're the one instance. You're the one instance. And the reason that I bring this up to people is that, yeah, if it goes straight back up, maybe. But even then, you are subjecting yourself to this, what we've called sequence risk. This to me is understated. This to me is understated. Because what has actually happened here? In real life, what has happened? Let's move, I'm going to make this bigger, and I'm going to, you can see that what ends up happening. Basically, this summarizes, by the way, that, average is just a number. And you can see it over here. I've spoken about this here, and now you're seeing it come into play, which is no surprise here. In 2022, the average IRA is minus 17. Now so if you started with 100, you're at 83. Very clear. Well, now all of a sudden, it's now here, and now you're at 3.5. What was it, 3.47? Right? So now, if you're talking about 3.47, your 100 is now 86. Guess what? During this period, right? Hopefully you've had cash and haven't had to withdraw this. Then maybe, yes. Okay, now for those people, right? Depending on who you are, those people, yes, there are extra nodes here. There's extra time here. Maybe, right? You're still here at the red arrow. There's a reason I keep using this. There's a reason I keep using, right, the NPV. There are reasons. Because it's easy to forget. It's not told enough, frequently enough. It's misunderstood right from the gate. So as a result, okay, we're back to just paying attention to Amazon earnings. But for the everyday people, you're concerned about this. And you can see it in full flight now because this was all glossed over because, NASDAQ's up 15% a year every single year in lockstep. Yeah, of course it was. Denominator straight down. Now you can understand how these hang together. Here's your issue. During this time, you're withdrawing. During this time, you're paying for expenses. During this time, you're taking out. Now, all of a sudden, right? So now you're 85.88. That's before inflation. That's before inflation, right? After inflation, then, what was 100 in January 22? January 22 to today, right? If you took 8% and 3%, you're still going to be, what? 1.08 times 1.03, 11% higher. Your cost of living is increased by 11%. Okay. I went to Green Onions the other day. I usually buy 4 bunches of green onions at a time. It used to be 60 cents. It's $2 now. A bunch. Ouch. I'm a cheapskate. That was very painful. My point here is that this is the nominal number. Your inflation adjusted number, right, is this divided by 1.11. You can see what has happened. And how difficult it is. How difficult it is. Because of the fact that, you just cannot, oops, what did I just do? It sounds right. Right? It may sound right that you would simply go, okay, stocks in the long run. In practical terms to everyday people, 100 is now 77. And now you can understand why you just, the idea of, and these are going to be my last 2 points here today, is that the idea that you would just set it and forget it on these elements just does not make sense, right? If you're worried about running out of money, if you're worried, or giving money to grandchildren, it doesn't matter what your net worth actually is. It just matters the degree. But the reality is that the idea we're going to let this 100 sit in the can and go down to 77 without looking at it or asking some very hard questions here to yourself, is just, to me, doesn't make common sense. It doesn't. And you could say, okay, well, I heard Ann Lester say that, okay, stocks always come back. Okay, so that's true from statistical point of view, but not by time period, and not also when we've had something we've also not had for 2 decades, which is inflation. So in other words, even when you add the agenda of business perspectives of these big funds, don't get me wrong, this is nothing against Ann. I've got I could have 5 hours with Ann. I'd be happy to have her as a guest, because her insight will tell you stuff. And I have not even talked about the nth degree of observations during our conversation. I wish I could have cut in and said, okay, can we tease this out? Okay, it would have been 6 hours later. It's not practical. We're going to have more of that. The next video up is Kevin Rabishow, world-class poker player. People know that I play as a hobby. Well, I have Kevin Rabishow, world-class poker player, as my guest. And, we had the same thing. We had to have 2 sessions. I wish it would have been 10. Because of the level of expertise will just, beget, give birth to follow-up questions. Anyway, you can see Vanguard here, 3.47. This is not really come right back. It always does. The reality is that if you had just simply looked, right, there are different scenarios here. It always does. Oh, really? I don't like the word always or never, right? And there's a reason, right? Because I'm still on this. That you're still at the red arrow. Ask any physicist, right? There's a reason I use physics, right? Is because this is particle motion. A speck of dust moving through this air. I'm not a physicist, so I won't embarrass myself anymore. But you can see, because of this, because of the sequence risk, the idea that you set and forget stuff just doesn't make sense to me. And because I'm sitting there with real people, everyday people of different net worths, and they're having to deal with 100 now worth 77 if you would just sit there. Meaning that your individual motivations can be notably different. Your agenda is individualized, right? Average doesn't mean too much for you, right? On average is what people rest on, the narrative that are trying to build businesses where you're talking about multi-billion-dollar funds. You're living as an individual situation where it may not apply. And for that reason, you can understand the common thread right here. Maximize your Medicare. Jay's Corner here, jo.substack.com. Do me a favor, please. Always have to ask for a favor. I'm terrible at asking for favors. I try to give the favors first, right? Which is, please subscribe. If you're a newcomer, there's no question about it for me, right? jo.substack.com. That's your spot for sure, because of the fact that there are a number of different topics. We've got n layers of n, endless, endless, not completely endless. I guess that's too extreme, isn't it? But we have a lot of topics here, a lot. Right? This is not. We're not in the deep end of the pool yet. We're not. For that, there's the paid subscriber edition of here where there are extra videos, extra insights on specific topics. Have a great weekend, everybody. Go Cowboys tomorrow. Oh, Michigan has the week off. Thank goodness. That's enough That's enough. That's enough shortcuts here. Thank you so much to Bryce Baxter for the nice words. You always have great information. The fact of the matter is, I want people to have. I believe that people have common sense, but I think that the world has given us information in just weird ways and it's easy to be confused and to be pulled off track. And as a result, you lose sight. It's easy to lose sight of this. It's easy to lose sight of this. I get that. I'm sensitive. And while I'm not having a pity party for you, right, by any means, right? Tons of guides out there that I've provided to people